If and when Arkansas basketball beats Baylor this weekend, what does it mean, and how do the Razorbacks get it done?
You are Locked On Razorbacks, your daily podcast on the Arkansas Razorbacks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the Pod of the Palace edition. Curtis Wilkerson here with you this Friday afternoon, getting you primed up for Arkansas and Baylor this weekend. Man, what a great opening weekend matchup. I mean, you got number 16 Arkansas, you got number 8 Baylor in Dallas, American Airlines Center, 6:30 ESPNU. What a marquee matchup this early in the season. There's a few good games on Saturday. I think we got Auburn and Houston, but Arkansas Baylor is right up there with the best of them. Going to be a really, really good one. Showcase opportunity for the Razorbacks early. You love it, man. Usually we don't see Arkansas playing in a game like this until you get a little closer to Thanksgiving, right? They've done some cool stuff on Feast Week, but I'm trying to think back to the last time Arkansas played just a really awesome, opening week game. It might have been all the way back in, what was it, 2018 or 2019 when they played Texas on the aircraft carrier. I mean, it might have been that far back if I'm really going back. Yeah. And so at any rate, very cool. Arkansas is 1-0 after picking up a 76-60 win over Lipscomb that, hey, I thought it was a really solid win. Some things to work on, but some people were a little bit underwhelmed apparently by the performance. Baylor tested itself on the road in its opener. Baylor failed that test on the road in its opener in a 38-point loss to Gonzaga. Nothing, in my opinion, can really be taken away from those games. It's worth drawing any type of conclusion as to how things are going to play out on Saturday. Also, regardless of how you felt about, Arkansas being in a closer game than expected late before they pulled away, or, Baylor getting beat up on, both of these teams are really, really, really good. It's a banger of a matchup. It's a pick 'em as far as it opened, according to the betting lines. And that sounds about right to me between two, top 20, top 15 caliber teams on a neutral site. So it might just be the second game of the season, but it's a massive one, in my opinion, for Arkansas for a number of reasons. This is John Calipari's first real spotlight opportunity, as the head coach of Arkansas. The Kansas game was cool. It was awesome. The atmosphere was ridiculous. You had Kansas in there, the number 1 team, Bill Self. Great. I love that they did it, but it didn't count, right? So you can only take it with a grain of salt. We know that. We've learned our lessons from these exhibitions. Lipscomb, that was the opener, but it didn't have the juice of a big opponent, kind of the spotlight game that Arkansas's got here. And now, you have an NBA arena that you're playing in, a top 10 opponent on a weekend, 2 storied programs, old rivals with some recent history. It's going to be really good. And here's the thing, though, folks out there, they are fishing for anything that they can possibly find to dunk on John Calipari. I think it's pretty obvious now. It's not just Big Blue Nation. People are looking. It's unfortunate, but it's reality. That's just kind of where we're at. Welcome to living under the microscope, my friends in Razorback Nation. When you get a coach who is an active Hall of Famer, who's kind of a polarizing figure like that, with the history that he has, going all the way back to the success he's had, and then some of the failures that he's had recently, especially in postseason play, that's what you're going to get. And so this is just something I think is an adjustment that all Razorback fans are going to have to make, because all of a sudden the target's on you, the eyes are on you, the bullseye is on you, and a lot of people out there are looking for you to fail. Interesting, because Arkansas has kind of always had that underdog chip on the shoulder mentality. That's kind of the mark of the fan base. And this is a little bit different. So it's an adjustment period. But it is fascinating to me, the same talking heads who just kind of simply write off Baylor getting slaughtered, on Monday by Gonzaga. They're the same ones who are out there making these grand declarations all of a sudden that Arkansas is not a cohesive unit after getting a 16-point win in their opener. A brand new team playing together in a game that counts for the first time. Of course they aren't, right? The same folks who are making excuses for, Villanova losing at home to an Ivy League school to start their season. They're making excuses for Villanova because, winning is hard to do. And then these are the same people who are underwhelmed because John Calipari ran some of the offense that he ran a few years ago at Kentucky. And disappointed that, all of a sudden DJ Wagner hasn't improved. Did you watch the Kansas game? Looked pretty good to me. Was he great against Lipscomb? No. Worried about Big Z still being a liability on defense. He was a hell of a lot better, I thought, against Lipscomb than he was in the TCU game. The point is, you would think that it was understood that teams are not a finished product in early November, right? The teams gel. They come together as the season progresses. Identities for teams are found, throughout the ups and downs at this stage of the season. That's where you start to learn about teams. You can't make big picture declarations like that this early. The difference is, though, that there is a different energy geared towards Arkansas now because of the lightning rod that John Calipari is nationally. It'll be annoying, and I'll probably be annoyed by it more than I should, because I am right now because I'm ranting about it. But it is a really good problem to have. That's my point, because now all the eyes are on you, Razorback fans. The bullseye is on Bud Walton Arena. It's different, but I kind of like it. Listen, if Arkansas loses this game to Baylor on Saturday, despite what anyone out there says, it has zero bearing on what this team will be the rest of the season. None at all. The same could be said if Arkansas wins this game on Saturday, but we would prefer that, right? Not only would it be just a massive early notch on the resume, it would be incredibly, incredibly satisfying, even if just only temporarily, to watch the trolling fan bases and the click-starved mouthpieces out there. I'd have no choice but to give you just a little bit of credit this early in the season. Watch them eat a little bit of crow. Sign me up for that. That's what we're looking for here, Razorback fans. All right, folks, when you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you got to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help you find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just a job board. It helps you hire professionals you can't find anywhere else. Even those who aren't actively searching for a new job might be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. Over on LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours of posting. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. Hey, just go post your job for free over at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Folks, with Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved by the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.5% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on an IRA account. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhoodgold.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rate may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. All right, everybody, welcome back here to the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, the Pod at the Palace edition. Let's humor me for a minute here. Let's live in a world where we wake up on Sunday morning. Arkansas's won this game over Baylor. That's not exactly fantasy land here. Like I said, it's a pick 'em. I mean, it's at least a 50% likelihood that that's exactly what happens. Personally, the closer we get to this game, the more confident I am that the Hogs get it done. And you can look at it a couple ways. Like I said, I don't think you can really take anything from these first two games from these teams and draw any conclusions about what's going to happen. I think it's risky business to look at the Baylor Gonzaga game and say, man, they got beat up on. Arkansas is going to go punk these dudes. I thought John Calipari actually approached it the right way of saying, yeah, that happened to them. There's their early wake-up call. And now I know that they've had a really tough week of practice, physicality, focusing on defense, diving for loose balls. They're going to come in super motivating, come in really hard. Arkansas's kind of got to be ready for war. I agree with that. If Arkansas is going to win this game, when Arkansas wins this game, let's go with that. How do they get it done? What's the pathway? I've got three reasons here why I think Arkansas beats Baylor in this game. The first is Arkansas defends, Baylor doesn't. Quite honestly, it's hard to deny. I think that Arkansas has been pretty darn good defensively through the small sample size that we've seen. I mean, it's 2 exhibition games and then 1 game against a mid-major. I get it. Sample size alert, exhibition alert, of course, but you can only evaluate based off what you've seen. But opponents are averaging, about 65 points per game against Arkansas here. The last two games they played, they've held them, both opponents, TCU and Lipscomb, under 40% shooting from the field. Outside of that TCU game, they've done a really nice job of generating a high amount of turnovers. I think the backcourt has been really disruptive for Arkansas. Been pleasantly surprised, I think, with the defense and just kind of the chaos that Boogie Flan can create back there. DJ Wagner's been great on ball. Nelly Davis has been better than advertised, I think, defensively. And then you have those other pieces like a Duke the Arrow that's a Swiss Army knife that can do so many different things for you on that end of the floor. And then you got really, really good rim protection, whether it's, Trevin, Big Z, Jonas Aidoo, once he gets rolling, that's a lot of length and a lot of proven shot blocking there on the back end. It's been good. Some things to clean up in the rotations, of course. Pick and roll defense, still got to work on sharpening that up. Absolutely. Did you give up too many threes against Lipscomb? You did. They only shot at 33%. They were going to need to make 12 to 15 to beat you. They made 9, so you want that number down generally, but when a team's going to hoist a bunch like that, that's not something that I'm bothered by too much, I don't think. But I think the point is these guys have really proven so far that they're able to set down and guard against not only good competition and talented players, but teams like Lipscomb who really run their stuff and challenge you to be connected as a unit and play team defense as opposed to just individual. Baylor, on the other hand, as good as they are, and they are very good, they have not been the same team defensively since Jerome Tang left his assistant chair and went to Kansas State. The last 2 years without him, let's see, they were 107th 2 years ago at KenPom in defensive efficiency. They were 72nd last year. That's been their Achilles heel. That's what's gotten them bumped earlier than they'd like to be in the NCAA tournament the last couple of years. That's why they've gone from losing, 3 or 4 games in a season to closer to 10. Now they play in a hell of a tough league. But the point there is they are not getting the stops they used to. They were nasty defensively when Arkansas played them in the Elite Eight a few years ago. I think they were very close to top 10 in the country in defensive efficiency. The year after that, Tang leaves, and they've really had a drop-off there. A lot of the problems have been, just around the rim, really, for Baylor. And Arkansas is a team that's at its best when it's attacking, getting downhill and to the rim. Baylor hasn't finished higher than 257th nationally in 2-point percentage defense since the 21-22 season. And you could say the same thing about, new year, new team. This is true, but the only sample size that we have on them so far is that they gave up 101 points to Gonzaga in their opener. I think the point is, this is a Scott Drew team that's got a lot of new faces. There is not as much continuity as he typically has. That could be a good thing or a bad thing. You don't know yet. But I think that now is probably the best opportunity to expose them on that end of the floor, as they're kind of in the same position as Arkansas of figuring out what their identity is, what they do well, where their holes are, and what they have to patch up. This is a time for Arkansas to exploit some of those holes. It'll help Scott Drew in the long run, but maybe it won't help him out on Saturday. The caveat here is it's going to require Arkansas to get more out of its transition offense, which I think they can do, and then get back to, I think, Kansas levels of execution in the half court. I was really, really impressed. I thought they were ahead of schedule against Kansas with the way they were running their stuff. And say what you want about the actual offense. I get it. People see, John Calipari running that floppy action, diamond, whatever you want to call it terminology-wise, and you go, man, that's archaic. That stuff didn't work. Some of it was the personnel they had at Kentucky, with Oscar Tshiebwe and just kind of his limitations as a player, as great as he was. But at any rate, I think it's more about the execution, being a little bit more purposeful, not standing around, being sharp with your cut, setting up your man, setting real screens, and keeping that thing moving. Because when the ball's moving and it has energy like it did against Kansas, anything is really, really tough to guard. When you get a little bit stagnant like they did when they were tired against TCU for long stretches, I thought they were pretty good there. And then same thing with Lipscomb when they were really engaged and moving and the ball was popping, you're getting reversals. They're really hard to guard. But when it's just kind of the point guard, just kind of surveying, half-hearted coming off of a ball screen, the wings are just kind of chilling there or jogging off of their cuts, it's not going to be that difficult to defend them. So that's the caveat there. Baylor is vulnerable defensively, but Arkansas has got to execute a higher level on the offensive end. The number 2 reason I have here, because Arkansas is finally going to wake up from 3-point range. I really believe that. And I'll come in here and eat my own crow, put my foot in my mouth, whatever, if it doesn't happen. But, even Cal was starting to be critical of the results after the Lipscomb game because he knows that this group's a better shooting team than it's shown. I mean, he said it. It was one of the first things in his opener of the press conference. He was just like, make a three. How about that idea? How about that? If you make 3 to 4 more threes than you did against Lipscomb, think about the score, right? And they wouldn't have had to force so many turnovers and get out in transition for easy baskets, and to get that 16-point lead, to get that separation. If they were just knocking down some shots, and you can talk about their shot selection out there. I think they're shooting too many off the dribble. They need to get more, like he said, getting 2 feet in the paint, spraying it out to shooters for rhythm threes. But they also had a lot of good looks that just rimmed out. It's not horseshoes, though. So, you need those to start falling. I'm confident that they will. 17 for 67 overall through 3 games, 4 of 19 the other night. It's got to be better. But, folks, they're going to start knocking down some threes, even moving up towards the mean, like shooting average. That equates to 3 or 4 made threes for Arkansas in a game. That's a huge difference. That's 12 points on the scoreboard without having to provide much extra effort. Sign me up for 8 threes in this game for Arkansas. I think you get 2 apiece from John L. Davis and Boogie Flan. You get 1 from either Big Z or TB, a stretch hitting the 3 ball there for him. I think you get 1 out of DJ Wagner, 1 from Carter Knox, 1 from Adut Thiero. Boom, there you go. You got 8 threes, and I think if you do that, you're going to be in a really, really good spot, because the flip side is Baylor is a team that is going to be a little bit undersized at times, depending on the lineups they run out there, but they've got a lot of guards who can step out there and really shoot it at a high level from 3. You're going to have to defend that, obviously, but you're going to have enough firepower from there to not match 3 for 3, but do a pretty good job of closing that gap so it's not crazy. We talked about that with Muss a lot. The way they would do it is get to the free throw line a bunch of times. Arkansas could probably benefit from tripling their free throw attempts from the Lipscomb game. I think they only got to the line 7 times, which is ridiculous. But closing that gap from 3 is going to be important from them. The last thing I got here for Arkansas, why they're going to win this game, is because I think you're going to get a return to form from DJ Wagner, and Jonas Aidoo is going to introduce himself to Razorback fans. You're going to start to see what this dude is all about. All you really need from DJ is some middle ground, right? As good as he was against Kansas, and you're going to have some games like that where he really pops and he looks like the best player on the floor. TCU, he was just okay. Lipscomb, didn't think he was great at all in that game. He's been consistent on the defensive end of the floor, and I think you're going to get that type of effort from him, which is huge, because you're going to need him to step up and guard, a veteran point guard like Jeremy Roach, for example, for Baylor in this game, or if VJ Edgecombe, the 5-star freshman, really gets going, you put your best on-ball defender on him and let him go to work. So that's going to be really important. But I think, 12 to 14 points from DJ in this game, getting downhill, finishing those shots at the rim that he finished against Kansas that maybe didn't get the roll against TCU or Lipscomb. Can you get a 3 from him? If you can, that's awesome. But I think also cutting down on the turnovers a little bit. He was really good with his assist to turnover ratio at Kentucky. Was pretty impressed with him against Kansas. He's kind of running this thing the last couple of games where he gets to the lane and maybe is having trouble with his decision making. And that's part of just chemistry early with the team, like knowing where your guys are at, knowing where they like to be with their spots and finding them. So that's going to improve organically as these guys get more comfortable playing with each other. But leaving his feet and not knowing where to go with the ball and getting turned over or getting into the paint and jump stop, and then you just get swarmed and they just kind of tap it out from between your hands there. Those are some of the things that we've seen. I think you're going to get a better version of DJ Wagner, and one that you're going to see more consistently this season. Jonas Aidoo, listen, can we get an uptick in minutes and just closer to true form from Jonas? Because if so, it's a game changer for Arkansas. It really, really is. He played 7 minutes against Lipscomb. Didn't look great in his first rotation out there. I thought he looked much better in his second. Looked like he settled in a little bit, knocked off some rust. John Calipari said after the game that he was playing at about 75%. But that, you got to start getting him out there, getting his game legs underneath him a little bit, shake off some of that rust, and understand you're going to be sore afterwards, and then recover and start going through that process a little bit. I would like to see 15 minutes out of Jonas Aidoo in this game. I don't think that's asking for too much there. You can get him in early, like maybe after the first media timeout, get him in for a rotation, bring him back in late in the first half, kind of do the same thing in the second half, depending on how it goes. If he's cooking, stick with him if he's up for it. If he's not and other lineup combinations are rolling, then he'll get his turn. That's coming. But I would really like to see that. Baylor's a little bit undersized. Now, they can start a bigger lineup. I think they would be foolish to do that against Arkansas. It's probably going to depend on if Langston Love plays or not, because if he does, then you can really go with 4 guards and Norchad Omier, which I think is a really tough defensive assignment for Arkansas, or for anyone, really. Actually, Arkansas could probably handle it fairly well there. But if they go with Omier at the 4 and then just kind of their role-playing, serviceable big man, the 6'10 kid, his name escapes me right now, it's number 17, as the starting 5, I think it really opens up things for Arkansas to use Aidoo Thiero on Norchad Omier for stretches. And then you have Aidoo, who can kind of serve as that last line of defense, protect the rim, gobble up the rebounds against a smaller team, maybe do some work in the post when you're kind of matched up and defending a guy who's not as much of a threat as someone like Norchad Omier would be inside and out. So it'll be something to watch there. But there you have it, folks. It's going to do it for today's episode of the Locked On Razorbacks podcast, Pod Palace edition. Make sure you tune in. Arkansas Baylor, 6:30 Saturday on ESPNU. It's going to be a lot of fun. John Neighbors, you guys know him. He and I are going to be down there. We're looking forward to it. Looking forward to the coverage. Appreciate you guys for tuning in as always, and we'll see you next week. Everybody have a good one.